Will Florida State's next transfer portal addition be an SEC offensive lineman?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst and writer. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I'm truly appreciative of you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Right now, you should download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Today's show, we're going to have a little bit of my own thoughts on how you should build your team during each offseason with the portal and also what not to do. We're going to have a lengthy discussion about the overzealous people talking about, well, at least Florida fans, how they think the portal is going to help Florida be this great team next year. That's not the case. But first off, we're going to talk about Florida State and their ability to get an SEC offensive lineman and some of the other visitors the Noles are going to have over the next 48 hours. The player in question that's most important is Micah Pettis. And boy, is that a big old guy. 6'7", 350 pounds, played right tackle for Ole Miss over the last 3 seasons. Powerful, strong, run blocker, pass blocker, whatever you want to do. The thing to think about with him is just sheer size. Watching a little bit of video, remembering watching him play, this is not a guy I'd want to get in front of. He was an elite recruit coming out of high school. Florida State actually hosted him multiple times, junior day, etc., according to Noles 24/7. He's also a player that had offers from a lot of different places, but obviously picked Ole Miss. Now, I'm going to share my screen for those of you on the YouTube channel, and I will discuss everything about him coming up here in just a second. But first off, let me just say this about him again. You're not going to find a lot of guys that are his size. It's just not really possible. Florida State needs, and I'm being kind here, 5 guys minimum up front in the portal. They've got 1 in the boat. They got 2 or 3 others that are possibilities. And then the news broke about this, at least that I wrote or read on Noles 24/7. So I went to Pro Football Focus. And here are the overall numbers for what he did this past season. And this is, let's go with 2024 first. I can go back through some of the others as well. But 2024, 765 snaps, over 700 of them were as an offensive lineman. Now, he played special teams as well, just to be very clear. Some of the notes that I have about him overall, 72.8 offensive grade, 74 grade for run blocking, 66.4 for pass protection. The one game that he struggled was against South Carolina, and their defensive front was nasty. So that's not shocking. 48.4, 50.1, and 43.7 for offense, run blocking, and pass protection. But he also had some really good games. Like Arkansas has got some talented players too. I saw them up front. Saw them play live this year. They got some talent on defense, 76.7, 71.2, and 82.2. So he had his games. And then at the end of the year, he had a pretty good game against Mississippi State. Overall grade in a rivalry game, 71.7. So he's a good football player. And Ward only knows FSU needs offensive tackles. When you want to dive into his numbers and go back a year, I can move this over for those of you on YouTube to 23. Look at these numbers as well. It's not a terribly big difference, but he did improve from one season to the next. But it's also good to look at this. He had, 9 starts last year, 11 this past season. So 20 overall in the last 2 years. And he had 608 snaps overall last 2023. So he's had over 1,400 snaps or right at it the past 2 seasons. This is a veteran player that you're probably going to have to pay quite a bit for. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But his grades in 2023, offense, 63.3, run blocking, 64.9, pass protection, 60.8. The only other thing that I'm going to show, and this is something that I probably should have done more of when showing other offensive linemen in general, but like I just pulled up the run blocking, the way Pro Football Focus works, they show the penalties on the run blocking or pass protection pages. He had 7 penalties. That's a lot in 2024. But at the same time, it is what it is. Good players make mistakes too. You have a guy like Herb Hand to coach him. Hopefully you could take that away if you get it. Now, as for his recruitment, let's be clear. This isn't going to be a freebie for Florida State. This is a very good football player. He has the ability to come in and start at most programs. So, and this is so ironic to me because I never thought this would be the case, but Texas Tech, of all places, is a school recruiting him among others. And they have got some NIL. That's an oil school. So if some of the boosters there ever got serious about it, Texas Tech could be a power. And I know a lot of people are laughing, but I'm talking about like having a $25 million roster each year. Like they can do that. So I don't know if that's going on, but they've been active with some other players too. So they're kind of a wild card here. If he's visiting Florida State today, which he reportedly is, again, according to Noles 24/7, I think that is a good sign because as I noted on Thursday, the teams that get the kids on campus first got a better chance with the portal players, not necessarily the players that we're talking about in high school. That's a different gig. If I had my druthers, it's okay to have the first visit, but you better knock it out. But I'd prefer to have the latter. These young men that are in the portal, they've been through a recruiting process already. They have at least somewhat of an idea where they want to be, major, the coach they want to play. It's a little bit easier for them, so it's a shorter process. You need to get a visit sooner rather than later. I like where Florida State sits, but if he takes the visit to another school, Tech or otherwise, who knows? Also, in 2023, just to kind of show his overall ability in a game, and he needs just more consistency, in my opinion, against LSU, 70.8 overall, 66.6 run blocking, 74.4 pass protection. I know LSU hasn't been exactly a stalwart on defense, but it's not like they lack physical traits here. I mean, that's still LSU. So Pettis would be a good football player for the Noles to pick up. Here are 3 questions that I have for you, and I'm going to make my own projections as well about his recruitment beyond where he's going to go. Obviously, we got to see how the visit goes for that, so I'll leave that alone. How would the Florida State Seminoles use Pettis? Now, you're probably saying, Brian, you just mentioned he played right tackle. Well, yes, but as many know, Kiffin used him in different ways. Played special teams, which is good. He's a guy that was actually an inline blocker, meaning like a tight end. He's been in the backfield before. He's a unique athlete. Gus Malzahn does some really interesting stuff. I wouldn't be shocked in goal line if they put Pettis as a tight end and they brought in another tackle or something, another guard, whatever, and did some different things like that, go unbalanced. So that's kind of interesting within itself. Also, I'm just curious. I don't know how much we'll find out about this, but I'd love to. What is the going price for a 2-year starter in the SEC at tackle? It's got to be pretty heavy. It also begs the question, does Florida State really want to get into a bidding war for him? What's he worth? Like, is Florida State winning the national title in 25? No. But could they be much better? Yes. I think they should make a bowl game with the way they've, A, improved their coaching staff like immensely, and B, the way they've at least started with the portal and who they're looking at. There's no reason to think they won't be at least a team that wins 5-6 games minimum. The schedule's not overwhelming. They don't play Notre Dame next year, etc. There's some reasons to believe they have a chance to get to a bowl next year. So how much money do you invest in a guy like this or somebody similar? And how soon could you find out? That's the other part. The timing of it's really important because you can't wait too long. You need, again, 5-6 linemen. It'd be important to get Pettis, but how long do you wait? Finally, my third and final question here is, would Pettis coming to Florida State help the Seminoles not only land other offensive linemen, but other good players, especially from the SEC? Last year, Florida State gained some Alabama and Georgia kids. We thought it was going to work out, and it didn't. But those were guys that hadn't proven themselves. Pettis is a proven player. Again, about 1,400 snaps over the last 2 years. He's a proven football player, played on a team that was competing for the college football playoff. He is certainly a commodity. I think it will help, and especially because you got a guy like Herb Hand. He can sell Herb to other guys that come in if he committed soon. That's really important to Florida State. You need to get the ball rolling here faster and faster and faster. They need, in my opinion, by the middle of next week, about the time we get to Christmas, Florida State needs to have at least 3 offensive linemen committed. That's what I would like to see in terms of them getting ahead of the curve here. It may not happen, and it's not the end-all, be-all. But if Pettis is one of those 3, you'd be in a good spot. You might have potentially your two offensive tackle, which would be tremendous, and maybe one other guy. To that point, before we go to the next part of the show, here are the guys, just as a reminder, some of the people that are visiting. Adrian Medley, a guy from UCF, another offensive lineman, finishing up a visit today. Got Duce Robinson beginning his visit. Keegan Trost, offensive lineman, another guy that's supposed to start his visit today. Obviously, you got Pettis. And then you got Deontay McCray, the defensive lineman I mentioned on Thursday. This is like the next 48 to, say, 96 hours. Florida State's roster could change a lot. I have no idea. I have no insights on it because, again, it's not like recruiting. And guys make a little bit more of a quick decision by the time you hear a rumor. Heck, the graphic is out by Hayes Fawcett or whoever it is that's doing their graphic. So expect some kind of news for Florida State, and I wouldn't be surprised if they announced it like during, because everything's strategical here, during the Florida State opportunity to break into the college football playoff news. When one of the games is going on, this stuff will pop because people are looking for news on the internet, X, Facebook, etc. Don't be surprised. And also, again, it can be very, very random. When we come back, we're going to talk about the situation with the Gators, why Florida fans are probably a little overzealous, and why actually Florida State's not a whole lot different situation than Florida is with the portal right now. That is next on Locked On Seminoles. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I've had that multiple times, actually. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was paying for, and Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor spending, and helps lower bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, and even goals down the road. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. For me, I know that I forget about stuff sometimes, and this is an easy way to do it. If you want to use Rocket Money, you'll probably end up saving some money and doing it pretty quick. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. This show is also brought to you by Game Time. Right now, you should download the Game Time app if you want to find opportunities for good tickets to concerts, to plays, to movie theaters, baseball games, basketball games, or anything else. They have Game Time Picks. It's a simple tab inside the app after you download it. I clicked on it the other day to look at some pricing. It kind of takes care of all the fluff, shows you the best deals on an event wherever you're looking at a game, and helps you out. Also, just as something I was looking at today, Orlando Magic tickets right now. You can get a game tomorrow, December 21st on Saturday, for under $50. If you want to get really good seats, you can pay about $150 for really good seats to see the Magic. There are also 4-day passes for the Daytona 500 you can buy on there, and just about any other kind of sporting event. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Don't believe all the garbage about Florida, especially from their fans, that they're going to kill it in the portal and they're going to be really good next year. They're going to be a playoff team or anything even remotely like that. Florida's roster has a lot of holes. And while I love DJ Lagway like most people do, that roster has a ways to go. In the next 5 minutes or so, it's going to kind of give a segue to why Florida State and Florida really aren't that different. Lagway aside, I'm not hiding that. But this program has a long way to go. And Billy Napier is still 100% on the hot seat. First fact. The reason they have as much NIL money as they do is they had the buyout ready to get ready to fire Billy. And at the last moment, they went against it. They were worried about losing Lagway. Let's not kid ourselves. If he wasn't there, Billy would be unemployed. That's reality. Number two, despite UF's NIL and their SEC brand and all that stuff, really thinking about it, do you think that Billy Napier is a guy that elite players at an NFL potential want to go play for to get their final development? I don't believe that's the case. He's still on the hot seat. Again, be careful what you think. Not remotely a championship roster. Did you see Florida's secondary this past year? What were they, 128th off the top of my head? In passing plays allowed of 20 or more yards. At Florida, that should never, ever happen. And Florida State had even more stats like that. I get it, but that's just one. UF finds a way to lose even with a future NFL first-round draft pick at quarterback. That's a big point. Third, this is another fun one. UF is not currently a destination school. This also is something that shouldn't ever be the case. It's Florida. It's not that hard. But since 2020, they had a really good year that year. Florida hasn't been good. The last 4 seasons, guys that enrolled in 21 to 24, none of them have been a part of a good Florida team. 4 straight years. And while Florida fans like to pick on Florida State's 2024 season, and I've done it plenty myself, I get that, but Florida has lost its cachet. So while they're going to go out and spend, and they're going to get some players, I'll talk about a couple of guys they've got that are good, they are miles away from what they're talking about on Florida X, on Facebook, or any other Florida fan that's driving you nuts. It's just reality. So here's a couple of guys that I've got that I think will be good. One is a punter, believe it or not, and I bring it up in all due respect. Florida State had Mastromano last year. Having a good punter matters. They just got the guy from Michigan. He averaged 42.6 yards. Tommy Dillman, good player. That's a smart move by Billy. And Worley knows as much as he's screwed up on special teams, he needs to get a good punter. J. Michael Sturdivant is going to Florida as well. He played at Cal originally, had like 65 receptions his freshman year. Everybody's like, whoa, who's this guy? Transfers to UCLA the last 2 years. But his stats have went down and down. I don't know if he's been banged up. I don't know what it is. But this past season for the Bruins, 22 catches, 315 yards, 14.3, and 2 touchdowns. Now, UCLA was not a destination school for receivers because quarterback play has been inconsistent. Not going to argue that. But he's 6'3", 205, and he's got over 100 catches in his career. He's a good player overall. Matter of fact, here the stats for Sturdivant. Historically, again, 65, then 36, then 22. I don't know all the reasons for it because he played quite a bit. So he's got 123 catches, 1,667 yards, 13.6, and 13 scores. But he hasn't been great. Lagway, I would assume, will maximize him. If he can't, then that's probably more on J. Michael Sturdivant. But it's not like Florida's killing it in the portal, and they're also losing guys as well. They lost Jakeem Jackson, a very athletic corner out of Osceola High School in Kissimmee. He's going to play for Coy Raymond, who he knows, who recruited him to Florida because he's now at LSU. They lost Kelby Collins, a defensive end to Bama. He's going back home. That's his home state. And Jack Pyburn, the much maligned defensive end, yours truly included with that, is also going to LSU. He still was talented. They're not going to be great. There's been too much swag and talk about Florida over the last few weeks being like the next team to step up. And maybe Lagway wins them a bunch of games with incredible passes in the fourth quarter. But this is not a team that's going to go out and stomp it. To that point, Florida State, why is it a similar situation? I was surprised, and I've been wrong. I thought they were going to be very conservative with their NIL. I really did. Because they're not going to be a championship level team next year either. But they went out and got a better staff than I thought they would, way better. And they also have started off pretty hot in the portal with the guys they're bringing in. Duce Robinson's as good a player as there is in the portal. And he's at Florida State today. Florida State's already got one good offensive tackle, probably going to be their left tackle. They may get the guy from Ole Miss. 2 guys are going to end up at least going to the NFL Combine after a 2-10 season. To me, that's mind-blowing. So there are obviously 2 things. They've scouted well, they've recruited hard, and the NIL must be a little better than what I had originally thought. Because, like, even if those guys were Florida State fans or had serious connections to the program through a coach, whatever, they're not coming to Florida State unless they're getting paid. Why in the hell would anybody do that after a 2-10 year? It's not rational. So with that, I also think we're going to have a few more surprises. Duce Robinson, I think Florida State's going to get. That seems to be the consensus, but, maybe they don't. There are other possibilities. We'll see. But they're also trending with some other players like Adrian Medley. They have a chance to get Pettis. This could be a really good Florida State group. To that end, again, Florida State and Florida really aren't that far apart. The difference is clearly DJ Lagway. If Florida State gets production out of Thomas Castellanos, I wouldn't be surprised if their records were pretty darn similar in 2025. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the do's and don'ts of the portal. Kind of goes along with what I just discussed about Florida and Florida State, how you approach it, things you should do, and things you should not. That's next on Locked On Seminoles. It's that time of year. The college football playoff is back. The newly expanded 12-team format is guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st on Saturday, starting with a college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern. Leading into our first matchup, the SMU Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then Clemson Tigers look to upset the Longhorns at a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Be careful what you wish for. Buyer beware. Are you sure about that? These are some of the phrases that are commonplace in American society, probably around the world as well. In the transfer portal, oh, buddy, that is a great place to discuss how things can go awry and very quickly. Case in point, 2022, 2023 Noles, they made good selections. Jared Verse, Fisk, obviously, Jordan Travis was unbelievable, but that was before the portal. He transferred, but he was still a transfer player. Vincent, all these guys. But then 2024 came along and Florida State took some guys, had a lot of talent, but they weren't proven, even though they went to Bama, Georgia, and other places. That hadn't worked out. Florida State has adjusted since then, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But again, be careful how you build through the portal. And this is the Brian Smith method here that I want to talk about on some keys. You can take the order how you want. I don't think there is a specific order, but there is one overall point that you gotta go with. And I posted this on X. I don't know if people agree or not, and I just posted it as a simple question. People can do whatever they want with this, and I don't think that everybody will necessarily like it, but this is the poll, and I'll share it for those of you on YouTube, and I will also describe it for those of you who are not. This is a fun way to kind of evaluate how important the portal is and how you would attack it. So again, here's the question. Find leaders first, talent second for the transfer portal. Agree or disagree. Right now on the poll on portal, and my handle is FB Scout _Florida. Again, that's FB Scout _Florida. 57.4% agree, 25.9% disagree, and not sure is at 1/6 or 16.7%. I find it to be a very interesting topic, to be honest with you, because there are cases where the numbers aren't right. And here's what I mean by that. If you are desperate at a position that's critical, like Florida State this year at offensive tackle, you might have to take a bigger risk at that spot. I'm cool with that. Totally cool with that. But at the same time, overall, you have to get leaders first. Why? Look what happened to Florida State in the 2024 year. You had guys that were on the roster, then they wanted more money after they were on the roster and came back, blah, blah, blah. Created some chaos, allegedly, in the locker room, etc. Depends on who wants to believe this, that, and the other as far as the rumors go. But I'm guessing if there was smoke, there was fire. So Florida State, I think, is taking a different approach this year, and it's a very important approach. They're going after good players, but kind of think about it. Gus has been around him. Herb Hand's been around him. Guys like Dominic Robinson played at Florida State. His kid, Duce Robinson, while he didn't actively get recruited by Florida State and take that entertainment to go there out of high school, he's an Arizona kid. He goes to SC. His dad's got him visiting today. People you have more association with, you know more directly. They want leaders, people that are going to be good for the program. They're proving that. That's very, very important. So again, I say, and this is my theme, find leaders first, find talent second from the transfer portal. What say you? With that in mind, here's the rest of my list. And you can take this any way you want, but this is just how I look at it. And the rest of this, there's no particular order. Just kind of name these off. Be careful how much NIL you use for a given player. So for instance, let's just use Duce Robinson. He's a big-time player. He's an NFL talent. It's not really debatable if you've studied him, know him. And by the way, he's a great locker room kind of guy. He likes everybody, very positive, very outgoing, perfect all around. Plus, he's 6'6", 220 and makes back shoulder catches look easy. That's important too. So do you spend a ton on him? Sure. But every player has a limit for two reasons. Number one, you got to have other players. And number two, again, it goes back to that locker room. Why are they paying so much for, and fill in the blank, player X or Duce or whatever? You got to be careful about that. Next, you got to be position specific. Even if a great player is available, are you filling your needs? The Noles, obviously, number one, and it's by a mile, need offensive linemen in this class. They're going after it that way, and they should. But they also need defensive linemen. McCray, they're going to go after him, and he's done his visit. That's an important one. The kid from Western Kentucky, but he's from Jacksonville, Sandalwood. Familiarity. Florida State needs to do a better job recruiting Jacksonville. Lord only knows. And they also need the size for the 3-3-5 that Tony White and Terrence Pot Roast Knighton are going to operate up front. This would be a good fit. He's got college experience. He's from Florida. He could play the strong side in spot. Winner, chicken dinner. Next, the locker room. I just talked about it a little bit. Just find fits in general. Not everybody has to be a stud. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, Florida is bringing in the punter from Michigan. He averaged over 42 yards a punt. He can kick the ball. But Florida, by the way, they haven't always been real great on special teams the last few years for Billy. I'm guessing they're looking for better fits too. It's not too difficult to figure out. They had too many guys that weren't bought in. That was pretty obvious early on this past season. They need that too. Well, Florida State does as well. And when you look at it, Florida State's been a little more conservative who they went after. Because every time I see a big name go across like Hayes Fawcett, Steve Wiltfong, whoever pronounces, hey, so-and-so is either in the portal or they're about to be, whatever it is, some prediction, I'm always curious. Is Florida State going to be involved? And I'm not going to go into names, but some of these kids, I'm like, he's talented, but he's an idiot. I know some of these kids, and some of them are flat-out idiots. Been around a few of them, or their parents, or their handler, and I'm like, I hope Florida State doesn't mess with this guy. To my knowledge, and I don't know all the due diligence because I'm not on the phone while Norvell is with these guys, obviously, they're not involved with anybody that I go, man, if they take this guy, he could really crater this locker room. That's important to me. Locker room first, because if the other guys on your team don't like the people you're bringing in, you will not even remotely maximize your talent on the gridiron that next season. Forget it. Finally, after talking about that, let's talk a little bit about the ability to get players that are not only good. It'd be great every year. This is hard. I'm using an example that maybe once a decade, if you're lucky. If you can get one of your stalwarts from the portal to be a true leader, you're hitting the home run. Let's give an example here. Jared Verse. He came in from Albany. Everybody's like, okay, who's this? I was like, who's this? But he, from day one, everybody kind of knew this was going to be a really good player. And by the middle of that season, they thought he was just going to turn pro. They were fortunate he came back for the 2023 year. And remember, we took the offensive tackle from Florida and threw him into the quarterback. Yeah, physical gifts were there, but people followed his lead. It was very important. He helped other guys like Farmer, Jackson, etc. in practice, on the field, whatever it was, Patrick Payton, be better players. Hopefully, and if it's Duce Robinson, I think this would be a great example. They can get a guy this year that is not only going to kick butt and take names and lead by example, but has some voice in the locker room, talking with guys privately. It doesn't have to be necessarily in front of a camera or microphone or both, but they have leadership skills themselves, an upper echelon. I think that carries a little more weight. That's just my opinion. With that, thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in and talk some Noles with me. If you like, I would appreciate it if you hit that subscription, like button, notification bell, and share this Florida State podcast so I can get in front of more Noles fans. I'd truly appreciate that. I will see you all again very soon. Take care.